The time is now for the Dr. Bob Sports Podcast. I am Tanner. I am our head of analytics, and for the past 6 years, I've been working alongside Bob, originating our NFL and college basketball bets. And today, I am joined, as always, by our digital media specialist, Grant. How we doing?
Doing great, Tan. Super pumped to be here. This is going to be a fun show. We've got three fan bases that all think they're going to win the Super Bowl, so it should be exciting.
Yeah, and the last fan base is the Patriots, where I moved to. So now I'm in AFC East country right now. We both grew up in Kansas City, but I'm out here in AFC East country and happy to chop it up about these teams today.
Oh, yeah. I spent a year out in Boston. I used to fight those Patriots fans. It's a fun one. All right, let's dive into the AFC East. The first team we're going to talk about is the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills' win total is set at 10.5 after going 13-3 and finishing second in weighted DVOA. The Bills came flying out of the gates last year as they started 6-1, and they were looking like the Super Bowl favorite until Week 9 when Josh Allen got that elbow injury. The team ended up dropping back-to-back games, but after that, the team would go on that 7-game win streak to end the season, but it came at the cost of losing pass rusher Von Miller in Week 12. The Bills took down the Dolphins in the divisional round, but would lose to the Bengals the next week despite being a 6-point favorite at home. This team just hasn't been able to get it done in the playoffs. Where are you at with the Bills right now?
Well, last season, we started them as 7 points better than average in our prior, which actually quickly proved to be too low. In fact, we were on the wrong side of the Bills the opening night. We bet the Rams in that season opener last year. And the Bills actually got up to 10 points above average in market before Josh Allen's elbow injury against the Jets. So Allen had a league-leading 55% success rate through Week 8, and then his success rate dropped to 7th in that second half of the season when he wasn't feeling right with the elbow. But Allen is back healthy now, and I don't think the loss of just one off-ball linebacker takes this team from a +10 in market to a +5 where they're opening the season. So I think the Bills might be the most underrated team heading into the 2023 season, all because of a single playoff loss in which they were a 6-point favorite. So, I mean, 30% things happen all the time. I mean, no one's surprised when Mike Trout gets a hit when he steps up to the plate. And so, one loss is changing the perception on this team going into the season.
Yeah, so let's look at this team. How was this defense last year?
So Buffalo's defense finished 7th in EPA last season, despite two all-pro caliber players in the secondary, Micah Hyde and Tre'Davious White, combining for only 258 cover snaps. And then they lose Tremaine Edmonds, who ranked 5th in coverage grade among linebackers, but getting Hyde and White back in the lineup should more than make up for that loss.
How good could this D-line be with Miller back and then the addition of Leonard Floyd?
Yeah, so Miller ranked 9th among edge defenders in pass rushing efficiency before getting hurt on Thanksgiving, and the Bills had a 36% pressure rate when Miller was in the lineup. Now, they add another body up front, like you mentioned, Leonard Floyd, and he had 53 pressures last season, which ranked 22nd. So I think that they can even improve on that pressure rate and get into the top 5 so long as everyone stays healthy.
All right, well, let's switch it over to the offense here. What do these additions on the offense tell us about what their plan might be for next year?
Yeah, so the big change on offense this offseason, I think that they're giving themselves a little bit more chance to play bully ball. They signed Damian Harris at running back. They draft Dalton Kincaid in the first round, signaling they might want to get into more 12 personnel looks with 2 tight ends on the field. So yeah, I think that this team maybe didn't love how limited they were in short yardage. They basically always had to go to just those Josh Allen power looks last year, and maybe to take some of that off Josh Allen's plate so that he can remain healthy. They've given themselves a chance to go a different direction in short yardage situations.
Yeah, I think the addition of Damian Harris could be a great goal line. He could be a good goal line back for them this year. But let's look at the offensive line. How were they last year, and what will we see from them this season?
So the team finished 21st in pass blocking efficiency last year. They didn't really get any better. They're basically rolling the same starters out there, except they're replacing guard Roger Saffold with Connor McGovern. And Saffold and McGovern both allowed a 5% pressure rate in 2022, which is around league average for guards. So I would say that the offensive line is exactly what they were last season.
Do you think the loss of Isaiah McKenzie is going to hurt them at all?
I don't really think the loss of McKenzie is all that consequential. This was the number one rated offense in market before Josh Allen's injury, and now they look more versatile, maybe able to get into more different types of formations this year with the addition of Kincaid. So I would say that we have to assume that this offense is going to be at the top of the NFL once again.
Yeah, so overall, what are your thoughts on the Bills going into 2023?
Well, I mean, we just laid it all out. They've got a top offense. They've got a top defense. And I think they're kind of hiding in plain sight right here. I mean, everyone understood how amazing the Bills were in the middle of last season before Josh Allen hurt his elbow. And now people are more skeptical on the Bills just because they lost that one playoff game to the Bengals. And I would say that this roster is as good, if not slightly better than they were in the middle of last season. So we're going to probably start them as the number one team in the NFL above the Chiefs.
All right, let's move on to the New York Jets. So the Jets win total is set at 9.5 after going 7-10 and finishing 19th in weighted DVOA. The Jets came into last season with low expectations with their 5.5 over-under win total, but they surprised many of us as they were sitting at 7-4 going into Week 13. This defense was fantastic last season, but the QB situation held them back. They would go on to lose their last 6 games of the season, and they didn't even score a touchdown in 3 of them. Luckily for the Jets,
that was crazy.
Oh, it was insane. Luckily for the Jets, though, they have signed up for the spiritual journey of Aaron Rodgers. Now that they have a real QB, what can we expect from them?
So the Packers led the NFL in dropback EPA per play in 2020, 2021 seasons combined. And those were the seasons that Rodgers won the MVP. Now, last year, the Packers were down to 16th as Rodgers had some of the worst receivers in the NFL after losing Devontae Adams in the offseason. But the Jets ranked 29th in dropback EPA per last season and 29th in dropback success rate. So Rodgers will have a better set of receivers to throw to in New York, but he's going into his age 40 season, and these receivers might be getting a little bit overhyped, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about these receivers here?
Well, I mean, they bring over Alan Lazard, who generated about half as much EPA per target than league average last year with Rodgers. They also bring in Mecole Hardman, who was injured much of last season, but never graded as a top 50 wide receiver in any of the previous 3 seasons. He had enough snaps to qualify. Randall Cobb is a league average slot receiver at best going into his age 33 season. And Tyler Conklin gained just 6.3 yards per target last season. So he's a replacement level tight end in my mind. I mean, 6.3 yards per target is really low. Even Allen Robinson was able to muster 6.5 yards per target in his disaster year with the Rams last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, the main attraction here is Garrett Wilson. Do you think he can make that jump to being an elite receiver in this league?
Yeah, I mean, after we go through everyone else, it sounds like Garrett Wilson is going to have to become one of the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. And he ranked 23rd in yards per route run as a rookie. So I think he should solidify himself as a Pro Bowl caliber guy this season. But there really just isn't a whole lot else to get excited for in terms of the players that Rodgers is going to be throwing to.
Yeah. Well, we saw this O-line had a lot of combinations last year. What are your thoughts on them for this year?
Yeah, the Jets offensive line finished 21st in pass block win rate last year, despite that revolving door that you were talking about. I mean, 9 different guys got at least 100 snaps, which is just crazy to see. So Laken Tomlinson, Connor McGovern, and Elijah Vera-Tucker are all basically league average on the interior. So it really comes down to if 2020 first-round pick Mekhi Becton is healthy and 38-year-old left tackle Dwayne Brown doesn't fall off a cliff. And if both of those happen, this line has a chance to be really solid. Now, if Becton, remains an injury risk like he has been thus far to his career, or Dwayne Brown falls off that, age curve, then this offensive line will be much worse than what Rodgers had in front of him last year, because you have to remember that the Packers ranked 3rd in pass blocking efficiency a season ago. So it'll be hard for the Jets to match that.
Yeah. Do you like the addition of Hackett at OC?
Well, I mean, Nathaniel Hackett's offense was obviously terrible last year in Denver. I mean, he didn't call the plays those previous 3 years in Green Bay, but he did 2016 to 2018 in Jacksonville. So Hackett's offenses have an average finish of 21st during his last 4 years of calling plays, which I would say makes him a definitively below average offensive coordinator. And the reason they really hired him was just to get Aaron Rodgers in the building. So there's a ton of hype surrounding Rodgers here with his new team, but I think it might take a little bit of time for this Jets offense to click to start the 2023 season.
Yeah, so let's move on to this defense. What do you think about them after just dominating last year?
Well, the Jets ranked 6th in EPA per play allowed last year, despite being one of only 4 defenses to average less than 1 takeaway per game. And we know how much takeaways can affect EPA. So it's crazy that they were able to finish that high with such a low interception and fumble rate. Now, Sheldon Rankins might be the only significant piece they lost on that defense from last year, and they replaced him with Quentin Jefferson, who had nearly twice as many pressures last season as Rankins. So that's an upgrade at interior defender in my mind. New York was also giving significant snaps to LaMarcus Joyner at safety last year, who ranked 56th amongst qualifiers in PFF coverage grade. So they tried to replace Joyner initially with Chuck Clark, but he tore his ACL this summer. So then they signed Adrian Amos, who's coming off a down year, but he conceded just 5.5 yards per target into his coverage in 2020 and 2021 combined. So he should be an upgrade on Joyner in my mind as well.
Yeah, and all those guys they're bringing back are great too.
Yeah, so we mentioned that they're upgrading a couple of the guys that were weak-ish points in the defense last year, but they're bringing back all the studs. So Sauce Gardner had the highest PFF coverage grade of any cornerback in the NFL as a rookie, and the other boundary cornerback, DJ Reed, ranked 11th in PFF coverage grade. And then obviously up front, Quinnen Williams is coming off a season in which he led all interior defenders in pass rushing efficiency. So this Jets defense is clearly top 5 in my eyes, and it has the chance to be the number 1 defense in the NFL if they can increase that takeaway rate.
Do you agree with where the market has the Jets for 2023?
Well, the market is starting the Jets around 3 points better than average, which is nearly the same as that 2020 Buccaneers team when Tom Brady came to Tampa Bay. And I think that's a pretty good comparison. It might take a little bit of while for this offense to click, and they could be, bolstered by the defense early on in the season, but they've got a Hall of Fame quarterback to lead them down the stretch in the playoffs, and they could make a Super Bowl run if everything falls into place.
Yeah, I think they're going to be dangerous this year. But let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. So the Dolphins' win total is set at 9.5 after going 9-8 and finishing 12th in weighted DVOA. The Dolphins had brought a new head coach, Mike McDaniels, and wide receiver Tyreek Hill for the 2022 season. The team was very streaky as they started 3-0, but they went dropped to 3-3 before going on that 5-game win streak, which was then followed by a 5-game losing streak before their final game, which they won. The season was a mess due to Tua having all those concussions, and the team was forced to start Skylar Thompson in the wild card weekend where they would lose to the Bills. What did we see from this McDaniels offense when Tua was healthy last year?
Yeah, so Mike McDaniel ran one of the most creative offenses I've seen in my 6 seasons handicapping the NFL last year. So he basically gave Tua an option to hand off on more than half of the dropbacks, and then he used the speed of his wide receivers to create passing windows. He was at the top of the NFL in motion rate, more than twice the league median. Defenses were so scared of getting burned deep by the speed that they had outside that Tua saw the second fewest rate of disguised coverage, which made his post-snap reads easier, and Tua ended up leading the NFL in EPA per dropback against disguise. So Tua ranked 2nd in air yards per attempt and 1st in air yards per attempt against light boxes. So McDaniel even showed an ability to scheme players open against dime and quarter looks. So it really was, it didn't matter what the defenses tried last year. No one could stop this Dolphins offense when everyone was healthy out there.
Yeah, the wicked lefty. But he was using these receivers. These guys were an absolute nightmare for defenses last year. Should we expect the same from this group this year?
Yeah, so they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both back. They lose Trent Sherfield and Mike Gesicki, but pick up Robbie Anderson and Braxton Berrios, who look like they'll be better fits in Mike McDaniel's scheme. So I think it's fair to say that this will be one of the best receiving groups in the NFL once again.
Yeah. How is this O-line, and what can we expect from them? What can we expect from them this year?
So Miami's offensive line finished 24th in pass block win rate a season ago, and they didn't really add much outside of versatile kind of swingman Isaiah Wynn. So instead, the Dolphins are gambling on internal development. 2020 first-round pick Austin Jackson and 2021 first-round pick or 2021 second-round pick Leon Eichenberg have been two of the worst linemen in the NFL to start their careers. Jackson only got 2 games last season, but Miami seems to think that he's made a leap because he's currently slotted in to start at right tackle. Eichenberg graded as PFF's second worst guard in true pass blocking sets last year. They're really just hoping that those two guys with relatively high draft pedigree can make a leap, because they certainly haven't shown the ability to pass block so far in their careers. Meanwhile, Connor Williams and Robert Hunt are league average, and they have one of the best left tackles in the league when healthy. I mean, Taron Armstead has allowed just 1 sack in 13 games last season. So this offensive line is really going to come down to whether Austin Jackson or Liam Eichenberg can make the leap. We haven't seen it yet, but the Dolphins not signing or drafting anyone there kind of makes me think that they believe that those guys will improve.
Yeah, and this offense was just league-breaking last year. Should we expect defenses to adjust this year?
Well, I think that is something to consider. So when we see these kind of very unique offensive schemes take the league by storm, we can maybe look back to when Lamar led all quarterbacks in EPA per play in 2019, and then defensive coordinators had all offseason to find answers. And the next season, Lamar ranked 13th in EPA per play. So even that might have even happened sort of in the middle of last season, after Tua went down initially. He led the entire NFL in EPA per play and success rate until Thanksgiving. I mean, he was above Mahomes and Josh Allen and all those guys. It was insane how they came out of the gates. But the league started taking away some of the Dolphins' deep middle RPOs, and Tua ranked 28th in EPA per play after week 12. Now, some people might say that he wasn't right after those concussions. Others might say that the defenses were able to kind of catch up to some of that scheme. So I certainly don't think that we're going to start the Dolphins offense number 1 in the NFL, like you could argue that they were coming out of the gates last season. But I think this is still a top 10 unit.
Yeah, I just hope that we can keep Tua healthy for a year. He's a fun player to watch. But let's move on to this defense. What are your thoughts on Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator?
So in my eyes, Fangio is the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, and the Dolphins paid to get him there to run that defense. So they made a massive trade in the offseason to bring over Jalen Ramsey, who ranked 9th in PFF coverage grade among cornerbacks last year. But Ramsey got hurt in training camp and will likely be out until at least December. However, I still think Fangio has enough to work with here. I mean, we have the Dolphins' defensive talent rated above average, even without Ramsey in the lineup.
Yeah, and this D-line has some studs on it. What can we expect from them?
Yeah, the D-line has the potential to be one of the best in the NFL. I mean, Jalen Phillips was one of 7 edge defenders last year with 70 pressures. Christian Wilkins led all interior defenders by far with 45 run stops, and Zach Sealer was second with 34 run stops. So we talked about in that AFC South podcast how DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart both finished top 10 in run stops last year for the Colts, but Wilkins and Sealer were significantly better than those guys. They actually combined for 16 more run stops than Buckner and Stewart. And then Emmanuel Ogbah finished back-to-back seasons with 9 sacks before an injury derailed him in 2022. And we've also seen Bradley Chubb finish top 15 in pass rushing efficiency in a Vic Fangio defense in 2020. So there's a lot of guys on this defensive line.
Yeah, they look terrifying. But do you like the addition of David Long at linebacker?
Yeah, Long ranked 4th in PFF run defense grade, and he's coming in to play alongside Jerome Baker, who proved himself to be an above-average cover linebacker last year. So I kind of like the balanced 1-2 punch that the Dolphins have at linebacker.
Yeah, the secondary is also led by Xavier Howard, but how is the rest of the talent around him?
Yeah, so Howard's a perennial Pro Bowl guy, and then the safety Javon Holland looks primed to make a leap like we saw Eddie Jackson and Justin Simmons do in Vic Fangio defense. Kader Kohu impressed last year as an undrafted rookie, ranking 4th in yards allowed per cover snap among nickelbacks right alongside Mike Hilton and L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, it was crazy to see an undrafted rookie do that well out of the gates. They signed Eli Apple and Deshaun Elliott, but the secondary still feels one player short to me, although Fangio has done more with less in the past. I would just like to see them get one more body in the secondary after the Ramsey injury.
Yeah, I mean, with Ramsey being out, can we expect this Dolphins defense to still maintain that high level?
Well, with Ramsey, this Dolphins defense had the chance to be a top 5 unit. But I think that they're probably going to fall outside the top 10 without Ramsey. At least that's where we'll start them. So they might end up being a little bit overrated. We'll see. So far, the market's only dropped them about 1/10 of a win in the win totals since losing Ramsey. And I would say that his WAR is probably more like a half a win. So I'm not sure that the market has adjusted enough for his absence yet.
All right, so let's move on to the New England Patriots. So the Patriots win total is set at 7.5 after going 8-9 and finishing 20th in weighted DVOA. The Patriots were ready to see some growth with Mac Jones at QB, but an early season injury would put him out weeks 4 through 6. The team got back-to-back wins from Bailey Zappi, but then the team would return to Mac Jones when he was healthy. This Belichick defense was actually in check last year, but this offense was holding them back. Some blame is to be put on Matt Patricia for the way he ran this offense, but are they going to be better on offense now that they replaced him with Bill O'Brien?
So the Patriots offense finished last season rated 20th in market, and they might not be making as crazy as a leap as everyone is expecting after changing from Matt Patricia to Bill O'Brien. So Patricia only ranked slightly below average in our play calling metrics last year. And that doesn't account for how they practiced those plays. It just accounts for what the plays that were run. So Patricia was really unorganized, which hurt the Patriots. And I think that Bill O'Brien will be running a much tighter ship. But I mean, O'Brien is not that impressive as an offensive coordinator. I mean, Deshaun Watson in 2020 had his EPA doubled once they fired O'Brien. And don't get me wrong, this offensive coordinator change will still be an upgrade. I mean, Patricia was bad. But the offense was 10th in EPA per play with Josh McDaniels as at offensive coordinator in 2021. And I don't think that O'Brien is in the same category as Josh McDaniels. So some of this expected improvement is going to have to come from Mac Jones.
Yeah. Do you think the receiving room is going to be improved with the additions of people like Juju and Mike Gesicki?
Well, the talent in this receiving group looks about the same as last year. So Juju Smith-Schuster finished 27th in yards per route run last season, but I think we're going to see him drop down to around 46th, like we saw during his last full season before that in 2020 when he didn't have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Meanwhile, Mac had a real connection with Jacoby Myers, who ranked 16th in EPA per target last year, and Myers is now out the door. They also lose Nelson Aguilar, but bring in Mike Gesicki, who I think is the real linchpin for this offense in 2023. Gesicki didn't fit in at all in Mike McDaniel's system in Miami, but he was great under Chan Gailey in 2020. Gesicki led all tight ends in touchdowns from deep passes, and the Patriots would be hoping to use his ball skills downfield along with wide receiver Devontae Parker.
Yeah, do you think this line's going to improve in 2023?
Well, the Patriots' offensive line was around league average in pass blocking efficiency last season. We should expect them to improve just due to continuity. I mean, they're getting all five starters back, and they're bringing in Riley Reif.
So what are your overall thoughts on this offense for 2023?
Well, I think a lot of Patriots fans are expecting them to make a major leap after the change in offensive coordinator, but you just have to look at the other offenses in their class. I mean, do we think that the Patriots are going to score more points this season than the Giants with Dable after bringing in Darren Waller, or the Saints with Derek Carr, Chris Olave, and a healthy Michael Thomas? I mean, those are the other teams that are in their ballpark. And if you don't think that they're going to score more points than those teams, then I don't think you can rate this Patriots offense above average. And I think that we're going to start them, slightly below average going into the 2023 season. Although the Patriots will almost certainly get more scoring help from their defense. So New England gained 34 expected points on pick sixes alone last season, which was double their plus 17 overall point differential. So you could say that if they didn't have the pick sixes last year, they would have went from a plus 17 point differential to a minus 17 point differential. So usually we would say that takeaways are variable season to season, and we wouldn't expect this to repeat. However, the Patriots have averaged more than one interception per game in every season the last 6 years. And for reference, usually only a quarter of the league's defense has accomplished this. So to do it 6 years in a row, especially in a stat that isn't consistent for basically any other defense, just really speaks to Bill Belichick's greatness.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that defense. What do you expect from them this season?
Well, there's good news and bad news for this unit. The pass rush looks better than ever. I mean, Josh Uche broke out last year with a whopping 20% pressure rate. Matthew Judon, obviously a major threat, ranking 7th in pass rushing efficiency on that edge. Christian Barmore dealt with injuries last year, but he finished 6th in pass rushing efficiency among interior defenders as a rookie. So I think we can expect a solid year 3 from him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about this being one of the best secondaries in the league. Do you agree with that?
Well, I'm not as bullish on this secondary relative to expectations. I think watching how these young guys like Kyle Duggar, Jack Jones, and Marcus Jones performed last season, everyone is expecting this to be one of, if not the best secondary in the NFL going into 2023 with another year of experience. However, everyone is forgetting how much of a loss Devin McCourty will be. I mean, McCourty was the only player on New England's defense last year to get more than 1,000 snaps, and he's been one of the league's best safeties throughout his career. So they've got depth there. Adrian Phillips and Jabril Peppers are safeties to step in for McCourty, but neither of them really played as a center fielder last season because they had McCourty out there on almost all of the snaps.
So where are we at overall with this Patriots defense?
Heading into last season, the market had New England's defense rated below average because they lost J.C. Jackson. But we thought that was way too low because we had seen Bill Belichick still coach top units the seasons after they lost Darrelle Revis and Stephon Gilmore. So we ended up betting the Dolphins team total under week 1 against the Patriots. And Miami turned out to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. But they still went under in that game because everyone was way too low on the Patriots defense. Now, we might be flipped heading into 2023 based on expectations. I still think this defense is really good, but some have them as one of the best, if not the best in the NFL. And I think that they're clearly worse than defenses like the Bills and Jets that we talked about earlier in the podcast.
Yeah, it sounds like this division might be the best in the NFL this year. Kind of similar to how we were looking at the AFC West going into last year. So we'll see if all these teams actually pan out and kind of reach that greatness that we're expecting from so many of them. But I think that'll do it for our AFC East preview. And if you're enjoying our content, make sure to leave us a thumbs up.